A very good afternoon to you this lovely Sunday, the 17th day of February 2019. You're watching NTV at One. My name is Zainab Ismail. And in our top story this hour, 10 people lost their lives, and at around 2 a.m. after a bus they were travelling in was involved in a head-on collision along the Nakuru-Drought highway. The bus from the Green Line Safaris collided with an oncoming truck when the bus driver was overtaking at Kamara.
The fatal crash of a Green Line Safaris bus happened at Kamara along the Nakuru-Eldoret highway. The crash took away 10 lives. The bus, which has a capacity of 65 passengers, was traveling from Bungoma to Nairobi.
Hiyo ajali ilifanyika kwa mshtuko kubwa sana. Ama tuliamuka kwa mshtuko kubwa, tukakimbia mpaka kule. Tumeomba serikali bams juu huwa wakati mwingi maneno kama inafanyika hapa ni sababu ni kona, na tumeomba serikali kabisa watuwekee bams. Tuseme kuanzia Kamara Primary School mpaka mahali inaitwa kwa Haron. So tukipata vitu kama hizo, bams kama hizo, inaweza punguza ajali kama hii.
The surviving passengers are nursing injuries at Eldama Ravine Sub-County Hospital, and 5 patients requiring special treatment have been transferred to the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret.
The total number of the patients the victims who were brought to the hospital was 74. 5 were children, 2 were students, and also we had women and men. 2 were able to succumb to the accident, and they were taken to the morgue.
It is reported that the bus driver was overtaking before colliding with an oncoming truck. Nakuru County Police Commander Stephen Matu says both drivers died on the spot.
Wawe makini wakati wanabeba abiria, hata wale wengine wote wale wanatumia hizi mabarabara. Tunapoteza watu wengi sababu ya madriver kuwa sio waangalifu. Waache kukibia. Ukitaka kukibia, toka kwako mapema mahali unatoka ili ufike uende polepole kwa barabara. Na tena wakati wanataka ku overtake, waangalie ni wapi wana overtake. Waache ku overtake kwa milima.
The accident happened at about 2 a.m. The bodies are at the Molo Sub-County Hospital mortuary. Earlier on Saturday, 8 people lost their lives after a van they were traveling in also collided with a truck. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
All right, and away from that, Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi spoke today at a church in Langata on matters referendum, saying that if a referendum must be held, there should be a sober conversation on the matter. And we have our political affairs reporter Kennedy Mureithi currently at the church, just to give us an update on the sentiments. Kennedy?
Well, thank you very much, Zainab Ismail, and welcome back after your short leave. But all in all, as you've said, is that Musalia Mudavadi was addressing the congregation at the House of Grace Church here in Nairobi West. And one of the things that he actually tried to appeal to them is that the congregation went silent actually when he started speaking. And one of the things that he was very passionate about is when he was speaking about the debt that this country is currently embroiled in. And Musalia Mudavadi believes that as a country, we are so much embroiled in debt that we need policies that should be working for Kenyans and not working for politicians. And he does believe that the current mess in which we are in as a country at this particular time with regards to the debts and the constant borrowing that we do have has been perpetuated by politicians who do not care about anything else other than what they do have and what they're going to get in future. And he says that all this should come to an end and these things should change. And he is advocating for a referendum where he has told the congregation that it is time that we as Kenyans came together and started discussing what the referendum question should be at this particular time, as what we are hearing and what we've been hearing so far is what politicians currently want with regards to this referendum debate. And he says the most important person in this referendum debate is supposed to be the Kenyan, the 50 million Kenyans that are here in this country. And how do we go about this? He says that a conversation should be started by Kenyans, then it be picked up by politicians. It is something that he has been saying for quite some time now, and he says that there is no need of him as a politician standing on a podium and trying to say that yes, we need a referendum so that I have a political position in the new dispensation. What we currently need is how do we get ourselves from the debts that we are in? And that is the question that Kenyans should be asking even as they go ahead with this referendum debate. In his consistent message today, even after the church, when he spoke to journalists who are here, he was of the opinion that as Kenyans, let us reevaluate how we've been able to be with this constitution since the year 2010, that is 9 years ago when it was inaugurated, and let us all look at it from that perspective and see what are those elements in this constitution that have not worked for us. Then we could also look at it and see whether we need to change it. Another aspect that he's also spoken about is the diplomatic tiff that is there between Kenya and Somalia. And he says that Kenya should move in as soon as possible and be able to sort out this mess, accusing Somalia of trying to hijack an international process that is going on, and saying that it is time that all of us be as patriotic as possible so that we stand with Kenya and what the government is doing with regards to this diplomatic tiff. On churches and what is happening right now where Parliament wants to bring in a regulation, Musalia Mudavadi says that no, let us first of all sit on a table between the clergy and everybody, and let us see whether the clergy will be able to regulate themselves by making sure that whatever is happening is not going to benefit a few, but we do not need a law to actually bring them to book. That is what has been happening, but we'll be preparing a detailed story for 7 and 9 o'clock. Back to you, Zainab, and welcome back.
All right, thank you so much, Kennedy. And of course, still on the same, COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli now says a referendum on the Constitution is inevitable. The trade unionist says the referendum is the only way to ensure that all Kenyans have an equal opportunity at leadership. His sentiments were echoed by a cross-section of leaders who are asking for sober debate on the issue.
Calls for referendum because we need a united nation. Lazima we create other positions. That's why you want to create the position of the Prime Minister. I urge my fellow members of Parliament tukubaliane tuweke pesa kwa bajeti ya referendum this July na tumalize kabisa ili referendum ifanyike. We
are opening up constitution for competitors. Ili yule mtu amekosa asirudi nyumbani kuorganize watu yake na kupigana. Aambiwe kaa hapa. Na kila province ya zamani ama any leading political party itapeana mutu.
Ntiati Member of Parliament William Kamket has welcomed the change of heart by those previously opposed to the idea of a referendum. Kamket makes the remarks just a week after Deputy President William Ruto put forth his proposals for a change in the governance system. In a constitutional amendment bill, Kamket proposes that the president serve a single 7-year term in a ceremonial capacity. He also proposes the reintroduction of the post of Prime Minister as the leader of government business.
When I began the story of the referendum and to change the constitution, some people started abusing me. Now the same people are now the new champions. They are the latter-day converts of the constitutional amendment crusade. I want to invite them and welcome them to join me in liberating Kenya for the third time.
The 25th memorial anniversary of the late Jaramogi Odinga is currently underway at the St. Stephen's Cathedral SEK in Kisumu, where the family of the Doyen of opposition politics in Kenya and a host of politicians are in attendance. Let's listen in.
Will be sufficient forever and ever. All the people are interdependent. Each one of them is a condition to the other's existence. And I want to bring one example before I sit down. How many of these congregations are wearing shoes? Can you show me by hand? I think it's the whole congregation. And can I ask you, how many of you brought these shoes from their own factories? And maybe there will be none. Therefore, helpfulness to the community and yourself is a great thing for the development of a nation like our own. Thank you for listening.
And the two-day ceremony to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the passing on of Kenya's first Vice President, the late Jaramogi Odinga, started yesterday. The ceremony has already seen former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, his brother, Yala Member of Parliament Oburu Odinga, amongst others, address a gathering that honored the late Odinga for his role in the shaping up of democracy. The ceremony had initially been scheduled to be marked in January, but was moved after the host governor, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, fell ill last month. Raila led a small celebration in Bondo ahead of the major one in Kisumu in remembrance of his father. Jaramogi, the pioneer opposition figure, died on January 20th, 1994.
And he told me there's no way you can leave the people. There's no way you can leave fighting for the people.
Elsewhere, Pokot South Member of Parliament David Kosing and his Kapenguria counterpart Samuel Moroto have called on fellow leaders to desist from inciting their constituents. They say inflammatory remarks are responsible for the tension on the border between the West Pokot and Turkana counties. The remarks came just hours after a pastor was killed in Sarmach in West Pokot in an escalation of tension.
West Pokot members of parliament Samuel Moroto and David Kosing have called on the authorities to beef up security along the Turkana-West Pokot border in light of recent attacks. A convoy in which Moroto was traveling in, together with the West Pokot Governor John Lonyangapuo, was attacked by bandits along the border on Wednesday. Moroto has expressed confidence the situation can be contained if, among other things, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i puts his mind to it.
Matangi vile alianza elimu akakuja security, sasa wameanza kuchafua, kupewa responsibilities mingi. Sasa ni wakati gani atakalia chini? Hata sasa tukipiga simu ama kuandika message kwa waziri Matangi, pastor leo alikufa hapa Sarmach, yeye haushughuliki na hiyo. The big four, your president.
The MPs have also called on political leaders from both sides of the border to desist from inciting their constituents via social media or on radio, saying it would only make a volatile situation worse.
Wale raia, wale Pokot raia hawana maneno. Uchochezi umetoka kwa viongozi.
Tuachane mambo ya social media, tuachane na mambo ya kutukanana, turudi kwa amani. Sisi viongozi tusipotukanana, hata raia wasitukanana.
While calling for increased security, the leaders have, however, urged restraint on the part of the police. The government has sought to bring an end to the practice of cattle rustling by both the Pokot and Turkana in an effort to maintain peace along the shared border.
And a family in Bulwani village in Butula, Busia County seeks justice after its kin was allegedly killed for failing to pay 9,000 shilling debt. The deceased is alleged to have been beaten to death by officials of a local savings and credit cooperative.
Family and friends have gathered to mourn the death of their loved one. According to family members, officials from the SACCO who are accompanied by police officers from Butula arrived at the deceased home and took away his cows and calves.
Wakamwambia watu wamekuja kuchukua ng'ombe zako, kuja akafuata, kuingia kwa lori aende Butula waongee, wakaanza kumpiga.
Walimpiga makono, akapiga kichwa, akapiga makono, akapiga kichwa sababu alikuwa amechoka na akarudi chini. Badala ya hao watu kuambia gari simame huyu mtu ashuke, na yeye anarudi chini na tena anaanguka na gari kampitia.
The residents faulted the police for failing to provide security during the incident. They said the two parties will have agreed on how to clear the debt instead of killing someone.
Deni haiwezi kufanya mtu akufe. Mtu ndio huwa analipa deni. Na kwa nini waue mtu juu ya deni na hakukuwa amekataa ati alipi? Tulikuwa tumekubaliana nao. Jumande anaenda kumalizia hizo pesa. Residents
here are calling on thorough investigations, especially on why the police allowed the suspect to beat the deceased to death. Halima Gongo, NTV.
And a section of Muslim scholars have come together to condemn radicalization and acts of terrorism, stating that it has no relation with the religion. Speaking in a meeting aimed at improving relations amongst religions, Moi University Director Bwarali Kame said radicalization was one of the key challenges they are facing. The meeting was held at Moi University Mombasa campus and was attended by about 60 participants, including religious representatives from every county.
Kama hii, kama nilivyotangulia kusema, nyingi tu zinahusiana na masala ya jamii na watu wataweza kushirikiana namna gani na kupinga hasa mambo ambayo kwamba yanatokea katika ulimwengu kama huu, kadhia ambayo kwamba hata kwetu Kenya imetokea, mambo ya radicalization. Namna gani sisi tutajiondoa katika vitu kama hivyo au tuhuma kama hizo ambazo kwamba mara nyingi tu hawa wanaofanya maovu kama hao wanatumia jina la Kiislamu.
Now, the weatherman has predicted that the long rain season is expected to begin in the coming week, with many parts of the country put on high alert over possible flooding due to heavy rains. While moderate rain was experienced overnight around Nairobi, the barrenness is evident in other parts, forcing residents to walk long distance in search of water and pasture for their livestock. With a 100 million shilling initiative to increase the resilience of marginalized households to climate change-related shocks through diversified livelihoods and improved natural resource management, it is hoped that residents of ASAL regions will be self-sufficient across the year.
The women of Dol Dol in Laikipia County emerged from the horizon, braving the harsh conditions, each with a can on their back, walking to the nearest water pan in search of a commodity that is becoming scarce with each passing day. At the water pan, the water has dried up completely, giving the women a challenge to dig deep into the earth in search of the precious commodity that they cannot afford to go back home without. The dried up rocks of earth are carefully picked apart and set aside, leaving room for the women to access the water underneath. When they finally get to it, it takes patience and precision to scoop the water. The not so clear liquid, a precious find that the women will take time to fill their cans with.
Ukifikisha nyumbani, unachemsha, unaweka kwanza ipoe, alafu unaanza kupatia watoto watumie kukunywa.
Asubuhi tukiamka kwenda maji, kabla tufike mahali tunaenda, tunakutana na ndovu. Tunabambana na ndovu, tunarudi kwanza nyumbani. Na mali bado tumefungia, ni mimi ndio nitakuja kufungua hiyo mali, iende malishoni, nirudi nikirudi kwa maji.
While man walks long distances in search of water, his animals are not so far behind, hoping that they will be led to a place where their thirst can be quenched with ease. But the scorching sun and sometimes rough terrain is not the only challenge they face.
Hadi usiku kuna mlolongo ya binadamu, kuna mlolongo wa mifugo, na kisha ndovu watakuja na kuharibu zile mfereji kwa sababu ya ngaro.
Ukikuja hapa ukiangalia, unaona mandovu ndio imemaliza maji kuliko hata wanyama ya nyumbani.
Beyond the rocks lie the villages where the people of Dol Dol reside. Here, long extended lines of cans are visibly sighted from afar. The only available borehole serves many from far and wide. With the skies not having opened up in the recent months, many are worried that even this lifeline might soon give them its last drops. In many parts of the savannah lands, the few boreholes run by wind turbines, though spinning can barely supply enough water for the sustainability of the community living here. With the reality of human-wildlife conflict becoming a serious threat in the future and the weather patterns changing, it has become apparent that people living in arsal regions need a sustainable solution to the challenges they face. Via the integrated management of natural resources for resilience, communities living in Laikipia, Isiolo, Marsabit and Samburu counties are expected to benefit from rangeland management and regeneration, increasing water availability through rehabilitating or establishing of new and strategic water points for productive use and increasing households with renewable energy.
If we continue to have such problems, our children will not be able to access school. The issues of health are going to be compromised.
In the next 3 years, the project will ensure that they secure livelihoods and strengthened markets, including for women and youth, that support sustained natural resources management, encourage sustainable management and rehabilitation of land, forest and water sources for strengthened ecosystem, and strengthen governance service and structures for sustainable NRM at community, county and national levels. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
I thank Leila for that report. And in other news making headlines across our borders, protesters took to the central district of Dedza in Malawi to voice their concerns after a 14-year-old albino boy went missing. The teenager is believed to have been kidnapped and murdered.
The 14-year-old is the third person to have gone missing since January this year, with a UN report stating that some countries in Africa show that the attacks on people with albinism increased during elections. Since 2014, 150 cases of killings, attacks and other human rights violations against persons with albinism have been reported in Malawi.
The death penalty is on our, our criminal code, but it has not been implemented. The president has not signed the implementation of a death sentence.
Many are calling on the government to intervene and help people with albinism from attacks and killings linked to cultural superstitions, especially as the May elections approach.
Now, the head of Nigeria's Electoral Commission on Saturday said politics played no part in the last-minute decision to delay presidential and parliamentary elections by 1 week. The Independent Electoral Commission announced that the postponement just hours before polls were due to open, blaming logistical difficulties. But the two main political parties have claimed the delay was part of a plot to rig the results. INEC Chairman Mohamud Yakubu rejected the assertion, stating that the decision was entirely taken by the Commission.
In a space of 2 weeks, we had to deal with serious fire incidents in 3 of our offices. It is for this reason that the Commission decided to adjust the election dates to Saturday, 23rd February 2019 for Presidential and National Assembly elections.
Now, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Cuba closed ranks in support of the Venezuela President Nicolás Maduro, whose country slips farther into political crisis. Cuba also denounced any possible military intervention by the United States as humanitarian aid designated for Venezuela arrived in neighboring Cúcuta, Colombia.
Several tons of U.S. aid have already arrived in the Colombian border of Cúcuta. The U.S. Army plans to deliver an additional 200 tons in coming days. Cuba has accused the U.S. of secretly moving special forces closer to Venezuela as part of a plan to intervene under the pretext of humanitarian crisis. Cuba has been a key backer of the Venezuelan government since what it called the Bolivarian Revolution began under former leader Hugo Chavez in 1998. However, most Western and Latin American countries, including the U.S., have recognized Juan Guaido as the country's legitimate head of state and pledged millions of pounds of humanitarian aid in support. The Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido said he was mobilizing thousands of volunteers to help bring American aid into the country next week, as President Nicolás Maduro vowed to strengthen border security and block what he called a U.S. invasion. Maduro claimed that U.S. President Donald Trump and Colombian counterpart Iván Duque had worked out war plans against Venezuela when they met Wednesday in Washington. Maduro, the hand-picked successor to socialist firebrand Hugo Chavez, meanwhile blames Venezuela's woes on U.S. sanctions. Some 30 European countries have already recognized the former engineer as Venezuela's leader, but holds out include Italy and Greece.
Niaje, want to invest in a biashara that will take your hustle to the next level?
Sporting update, I'm Ida Warenga. Well, 6 matches are on the cards in this afternoon's Kenyan Premier League action that will be played across different venues in the country. Mathare United will have a chance to reclaim a top spot when they tackle Zoo FC in Kericho, while defending champions Gor Mahia will be hoping to displace a Sofapaka from third when they face off at the Afraha Stadium in Nakuru. This as KCB face a Sonny Sugar in the first of a double-header at Machakos before second from bottom side AFC Leopards do battle with Ulinzi Stars at the same venue. Western Stima take on Mount Kenya United in Kisumu, and Vihiga play Posta Rangers at the Buhungu Stadium. Well, the national under-15s team thrashed Machakos-based Uvule Youth Academy 7-1 in a friendly match at the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos. The friendly was a build-up to the MIC football tournament in Spain in April, where the junior stars will play alongside Real Madrid, FC Barcelona, Ajax, Manchester United and Manchester City in the under-16s category. Midfielders Kevin Wangaya and James Gashago scored twice each, with Teddy Sirma, Hamis Nyale and Oscar Ochieng also on the score sheet, as the junior stars managed a 4th win in as many friendly matches so far this year. Well, Musioki Muya emerged the winner of the 10-kilometer race in the Kenya Pipeline cross-country race held at Thanye Primary School in Kibwezi East, Makueni County. Joseph Kilonzo came in second and Nicholas Mwendwa finished in third. Catherine Mwendi broke the tape first in the women's 10-kilometer category. The top 3 in the junior and senior men and women categories got 7,000, 5,500 and 4,000 shillings respectively. The race, which was celebrating its 3rd edition, was open to the general community, including the elderly who competed in the 3-kilometer category, persons with disability who also took part in the same 3 km, and children up to 17 years who ran in the 5-kilometer race. Let's cross borders now, and Crystal Palace and Wolves will be the other Premier League sides sitting. to wonder how many would actually manage to fulfill that in the country.
It will take a lot of strength for that. Would you probably allow your future husband to do the same for you?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see one day.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. This was NTV at One. Of course, we have a lot lined up for you in our subsequent bulletins. My name is Zainab Ismail. Good afternoon.